Hey guys, what's up? It's a Culture Detective here, investigating your favorite animes, and today is my last day in Hong Kong in this summer interlude before I return to America tomorrow, and I'm going to be leaving my home for a really long time this time. So this is going to be the last time you'll be seeing me in this background until a long time later. And I'm going to end off my series of reviews in this room with a review of an anime that I just finished watching, and that is Takopi's original Sin, or in Japanese, Takopi no Genzai. This is an anime based off of a manga, a very brief 2-volume manga by Taizan 5. This was actually a webcomic until it is printed out as a physical manga and then animated by a pretty new studio called Anicia. And this was it was very interesting when they announced the release of Takopi no Genzai, because in the manga community on the internet, Takopi no Genzai is one of those mangas that are sacred. You can never really adapt this manga into a good anime because it's just too good of a manga. Mangas like Vagabond, Real, 20th Century Boys, Oyasumi Punpun. I guess Vagabond is unadaptable because it is just so well drawn and just so extremely meant for the manga format. But then you have Oyasumi Punpun and Takobi no Genzai, which are two mangas that very much deals with intense psychological conditions, and I guess because of that, the anime studios are not brave enough to make these into animes. Well, you're wrong, because Takopi no Genzai is now an anime, and in fact it is directed by Ino Shinya, who was also the director for Made in Abyss. So children suffering and crying and being hurt, not unfamiliar territory. Now, Takopi no Genzai is a story about an octopus-shaped alien called Takopi, who came from a planet called Happy Planet, came to Earth, and decided to save a girl who was really sad and faced abuse and neglect and bullying. And that is as far as I could say before getting into very heavy spoilers and also getting into very sensitive topics that definitely should not be thrown around lightly. And episodes 1 and 2, first of all, this anime is 6 episodes long. It's extremely short. Episodes 1 and 2 are two of the most crushingly depressing episodes of anime I've ever seen. I'm going to be honest here, episodes 1 and 2 were quite disturbing, and understandably so. The first episode involves a child committing suicide. There is also a lot of bullying. For the suicide scene, I feel like I already know this part because I was either spoiled or maybe that part was in the synopsis and I read it. So when that scene happened, I kind of knew it was coming, but that scene was still very uncomfortable to watch for me. And it's absolutely insane that the anime not only did not censor anything during that scene, but also lingered so long with the scene. But I think the scene that is even more uncomfortable for me to watch is when Marina was bullying Shizuka, and also when Takopi impersonated Shizuka and Marina beat her up, kicked her, yelled at her, physically and verbally abused her. And I think it is scenes like this that really reveal that, when someone is being bullied, you just don't go and tell them, why don't you fight back? Why don't you just punch that bully back? Because bullying isn't just physical and verbal. Bullying is extremely mental, because when Takopi impersonating Shizuka, and also Shizuka herself, were being bullied by Marina, they couldn't fight back. They were forced onto the ground and they couldn't even stand up. Because when you were bullied, you were basically telling yourself that the bully is right when the bully calls you trash, calls you useless, calls you scum, and tells you that you should die. You actually agree with the bully. So it's much more complicated than just a person beats up another person. The other person, the victim themselves, also believe that they deserve the bullying. Thus, they literally cannot stand up because they're not allowing themselves to fight back. And that was so visceral and intense. I almost cried during that scene. And to also see Takopi, who was originally this really innocent and happy and lighthearted creature, finally experiencing pain of this level and understanding and seeing that the world is dark and broken is just very heartbreaking. And I feel like this is almost made as a response to people who see anime as pure fun escapism. People who watch anime just to have fun and see cute girls doing cute things and completely ignoring the harsh realities that they themselves have in real life. And I feel like the writer of Takopi no Genzai really tried to contrast the two. Of course, you have the character of Takopi being all cutesy, and you also have the cute music and voice acting, and even the animation style is very bright and lively. But then that is contrasted with extremely dark and depressing topics that, again, just really contrast everything else in the anime. At times, it does feel really out of place. At times, something really depressing happens, and then cute, upbeat music plays, and you're just like, why would you do that? I get it. Sometimes it just didn't do what it's trying to do. But yeah, another thing is the depiction of suicide. I read some negative reviews online saying that the suicide scene and also other scenes of abuse are all shock factor. But I do think that these scenes are written with a certain degree of respect because the story actually attempts to understand and dissect the scene instead of just playing it and then that's it. Instead of just writing this scene and then ignoring it, the story actually tries to understand, why did this character commit suicide? Why did this character bully others? Why is this character hurting others? And maybe they are hurt themselves as well. And I guess one complaint I have would be the OP. Again, I understand that the anime is trying to do a contrast between cutesy aesthetics and the actual dark subject matter, and have Ano singing the OP and the song being this really cutesy thing. I just don't think it works that well. I would like to see an OP that is more subtle. Yeah, it doesn't have to be like a depressing OP or anything. Of course, I like the contrasting. I just think it could be toned down a little bit. I don't think Ano is the right fit for the song, unfortunately. Episode 2 ends off on an absolutely insane note. There's a title drop, Takopi's original sin, and I totally did not expect that title drop. And the story takes a very strange turn after episode 2, and episodes 3 and 4 almost belong to a different genre. We are introduced to a new character, Azuma. And when the show introduced a new character, I just didn't really care about him that much. And he was also experiencing a lot of torment himself, inferiority complex, very complicated relationship with his mom, who is neglectful, who pressures him, and this is a really real issue, and I feel like extremely real in East Asia. A lot of people I personally know also have gone through what he had gone through. This is what you would call tiger mom, tiger parents, parents who force their children to be perfect and everything, perfect on all the test scores, on all the exams. And while I do think this is a really real issue, I just think I would love to see a more in-depth look into his character. And I feel like at this point in the anime, there's too much on its plate and it's pumping out too fast. Now we have episode 5, which I think takes a very interesting turn. There's a sequence that takes place on the Happy Planet, and the art style changes to a watercolor art style, and it's absolutely gorgeous. There's also a role reversal where Takopi has a realization that there are no true villains and that human beings just hurt each other because they are hurt themselves. And Takopi is almost in this deadlock situation where one dies and one lives and one dies, and one is happy and one will die, etc. And then we have episode 6, which I think is a very powerful ending, though I do see that the last few scenes could feel a little bit rushed, but I do think that the ending is really powerful. Shizuka's rant is so raw and intense. Again, it almost pushed me to tears. Yeah, the ending is a little bit convenient. I would love to see the anime spend maybe 6 or even 10 more episodes just exploring these characters, healing and growing. But otherwise, I still think this is an absolutely just important anime, just not only because of its subject matter and what it's trying to explore, but also the way it brings us to reality with such a strong contrast between what anime could be as a form of escapism versus what reality is. And that is, people need help, man. Children need help. So yeah, just a very fucked up anime, but if you can stomach it, I think it's going to do something for you. I think it's going to say things to you. I think it has a very strong message. I also think the voice acting is just incredible. We have Mamiya Kurumi playing Takopi, someone I don't really know, but apparently she also played Hamutaro, which makes a lot of sense. We have Ueda Reina as Shizuka and Kohara Konomi as Marina, 2 powerhouse performances. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that. This is a lot to take in, and I've known people in my life who had gone through similar situations, and it just really makes you reflect on what could have done, what you could have done, what we could have done, how things could have turned out for better or worse. So yeah, strong 9 out of 10. So have you watched Takopi no Genzai? Comments below, let me know, subscribe if you want more, and thanks for watching.